In the earlier episode, we have seen what the intensity is. What is the difference between magnitude and intensity and the effects of earthquakes. Now, in this episode, we will see how the damages are quantified and then used to assign the intensity to a place. And then we will also see how these intensities are used to make isosceles maps and what are the advantages of these maps, how they are used for our use. We will see two of the important scales, the MSK and MMI. Seismologists in India, they prefer MSK scale because this scale gives you more defined terms which you find in field, and there are very less confusions in assigning the intensity. In this scale, the types of the structures are divided into three categories. The type A structures are those structures which are the buildings of field stone, rural structures, adobe houses or the clay houses. These type of structures you will find in most of the villages in India. So, that is why this scale is more useful for Indian context. The type B structures are ordinary brick buildings, large block constructions, half timbered structures, structures of hew block of stones. The type C structures consist of precast concrete skeleton construction, precast large panel construction and well built wooden houses. So, while you go in the field, you first have to decide which type of construction is the one on which damages have to be studied. Now, the question comes, how much damage and in how many buildings? For that, MSK has again defined the terms. Single or few means less than 10% of the total buildings. Then we use the term many, which means that 20 to 50%, and the most means greater than 60%. So, the terms like few, many, most, they are predefined and they are used while assigning the intensity. Then we see the damages in the buildings. The damage are of different grades, and as per the MSK scale, they are categorized in 5 different grades. Grade 1 damage means slight damage. It is defined as the fine cracks in plaster, fall of small pieces of plaster. Grade 2 is higher than the grade 1, which means the moderate damage. In this, small cracks in the walls, fall of fairly large pieces of plaster, pantiles, the slip off, cracks in chimneys and parts of the chimneys fall down. Grade 3 damage means heavy damage, and it consists of large and deep cracks in walls and fall of chimneys. Then comes grade 4 damage. Grade 4 damage means destruction. Here you will find gaps in the walls, parts of the buildings may collapse, separate parts of the buildings lose their cohesion, inner walls and filled in walls of the frame collapse. Now, let us see grade 5 damage, and it means the total collapse of buildings. As you can see in this area, nothing is left. So, this is known as grade 5 damage. While defining the individual intensities on MSK scales, these are defined in 3 terms. As per the persons and surroundings, the damages to the structures and the nature. So, we will see these 3 points A, B and C, and in these terms we will try to see the damage and assign intensity to that point. MSK is a 12 scale intensity scale. Now, let us see what do you mean by intensity 1. In this, the A part, the persons and surroundings, the intensity of the vibration is below the limit of sensibility. The tremor is detected and recorded by seismographs only. And as you see, there are no effects on B and C. So, intensity 1 can be given after the contour of intensity 2, since it is only the seismogram which is defining intensity 1. Now, let us see intensity 2. In this, it is defined as the intensity which is very slight. The A part, that is the persons and surroundings, consists of vibration is felt only by individual people at rest in houses, especially on upper floors of buildings, and there are no effects on B and C. Now, let us see intensity 3. Intensity 3 is the weak intensity. The A part consists of the earthquake is felt indoors by a few people, and please see that this few is predefined word. Outdoors only in favorable circumstances. Attentive observers notice a slight swinging of hanging objects, somewhat more heavily on upper floors. Here also B and C, they are absent. Let us go for intensity 4. Intensity 4 is largely observed. Here the A consists of the earthquake is felt indoors by many people, outdoors by a few. Here and there people awake, but none is frightened. The vibration is moderate. Windows, doors and dishes rattle. Floors and walls creak. Furniture begins to shake. Hanging objects swing slightly. Liquids in open vessels are slightly disturbed. In standing motor cars, the shock is noticeable. Here also, there is no effect on B and C. The actual intensity marking start at intensity 5, where we call it as the strong intensity. The A part consists of the earthquake is felt indoors by most, means more than 60%, and outdoors by many. It means more than half people they felt this earthquake. Many sleeping people awake. A few run outdoors. Animals become uneasy. Buildings tremble throughout. Hanging objects swing considerably. Pictures swing out of place. Occasionally, pendulum clocks stop. The unstable objects may be overturned or shifted. Open doors and windows are thrust open and slammed back again. Liquids spill in small amounts from well-filled open containers. The vibration is strong, resembling sometimes the fall of a heavy object in the building. And since it is the strong intensity, we find that in the B category, the damages of grade 1 in few buildings of type A is possible. Now onwards, we will see the predefined types of the buildings and the grades. The C part, in which the effect on nature is observed, consists here sometimes change in flow of springs, that is observed, and based on all these three, we assign intensity 5 to that location. Now let us see what is intensity 6. 6 means slight damage. In this, the A part consists of, it is felt by most indoors and outdoors. Many people in buildings are frightened and run outdoors. A few persons lost their balance. Domestic animals run out of their stalls. In few instances, dishes and glasswares may break, books fall down, heavy furniture may possibly move, and small steeple bells may ring. Some of you may have remembered the Muzaffarabad earthquake. And in one news channel, some interview was going on, and at that time, the people there in the room felt the earthquake. The desk started trembling, and it was telecast. Now let us see the next point, which is B. In B, the damage of grade 1 is sustained in single buildings of type B and in many of type A. Damage in few buildings of type A is of grade 2. In C, which is the effect on nature, in few cases cracks up to widths of 1 centimeter are possible in wet ground. In mountains, occasionally the landslips are there. Change in flow of springs can be observed, and there is a change in level of well water in such area, where we give the intensity 6. The intensity 7 is damage to buildings. The A part consists of most people are frightened and run outdoors. Many find it difficult to stand. The vibration is noticed by persons driving motor cars. The large bells they ring. Now let us see the B point. In many buildings of type C, damage of grade 1 is caused. In many buildings of type B, damage is of grade 2. Many buildings of type A suffer damage to grade 3 and few of grade 4. In single instances, landslips of roadway on steep slopes. Locally cracks in roads and stone walls are observed. In C, the effect on the nature. Waves are formed on water and water is made turbid by mud stirred up. Water levels in wells changes and flow of spring changes. In few cases, dry springs have their flow restored and existing springs stop flowing. In isolated instances, parts of sandy or gravelly blank slip off. This was intensity 7. And now we are moving towards the epicenter of the earthquake. Here we will see more and more damage, and this is the area which is having lots and lots of problem when the earthquake they occur. Most of the time, the seismologists, when they go for the damage survey, they have to take the permission from the government to enter into such area, because lot of damages are there and loss of life that begins in intensity 8. Intensity 8 means destruction of buildings. In A part, general fright, few people show panic. Also, persons driving motor cars are disturbed. Here and there branches of trees they break off. Even heavy furniture moves and partly overturns. Hanging lamps are in part damaged. Then on buildings, the part B. Many buildings of type C suffer damage of grade 2 and a few of grade 3. Many buildings of type B suffer damage of grade 3 and few of grade 4. Many buildings of type A suffer damage of grade 4 and few of grade 5. It means that in villages, more than 50% of the buildings are damaged. Memorials and monuments move and twist. Tombstones overturn and stone walls are collapsed. Since the force of the earthquake is much more in the area where intensity 8 is observed, let us see the effect on nature. Small landslips in hollows and on banked roads on steep slopes. Cracks in ground up to widths of several centimeters are observed. You can see the example from the Bhuj earthquake. The boy is standing in the crack itself. New reservoirs come into existence. Sometimes dry wells refill and existing well become dry. In many cases, change in flow and level of water or wells are observed. Then we move to intensity 9. Intensity 9 means general damage to buildings. The A part consists of general panic, considerable damage of furniture, animals run to and fro in confusion and cry. The B part consists of many buildings of type C suffer damage of grade 3, a few of grade 4. Many buildings of type B show damage of grade 4, a few of grade 5. Many buildings of type A suffer damage of grade 5. Monuments and columns, they fall. Reservoirs may show heavy damage. In individual cases, railway lines are bent and roadways are damaged. On the nature, the intensity 9 gives the effect like flat land overflow of water. Sand and mud is often observed. Ground cracks to widths of up to 10 centimeters. In slopes and river banks more than 10 centimeters. Furthermore, a large number of slight cracks in ground, falls of rock, many landslides and earth flows. Large waves on water can be seen in the area where intensity 9 is given. Now let us see intensity 10, and remember that in case of Bhuj earthquake, the intensity 10 was assigned to the place where maximum damage occurred. There were some observations which you can match now with the description. Intensity 10 means general destruction of buildings. Here we don't have to interview the people because that has ended already in intensity 9. So we can see only the effect on the buildings and on the nature. And now more and more effects on the nature will be seen. The B part, the effects on the buildings is like many buildings of type C suffer damage of grade 4, a few of grade 5. Many buildings of type B show damage of grade 5. Most of type A collapse. Dams, dikes and bridges may show severe to critical damage. Railway lines are bent slightly. Road pavement and asphalt show waves. The effect on nature consists of the cracks up to the widths of several decimeters, sometimes up to 1 meter. Broad fissures occur parallel to watercourses. Loose ground slides from steep slopes. Considerable landslides are possible from river banks and steep coasts. In coastal areas, displacement of sand and mud, water from canals, lakes, river, etc. thrown on land. New lakes, they occurred. Now let us go to intensity 11, which is a catastrophe. The B part consists of destruction of most and collapse of many buildings of type C. Even well-built bridges and dams may be destroyed, and railway lines largely bent, thrusted or buckled. Highways become unusable. Underground pipes, they are destroyed. The effect on nature means ground fractured considerably by broad cracks and fissures, as well as by movement in horizontal and vertical directions. Numerous landslides and falls of rock. The intensity of the earthquake requires to be investigated, especially for intensity 11 and 12. The intensity 12 is the last point on the intensity scale, and this means landscape changes. In B part, practically all structures above and below ground are heavily damaged or destroyed. It means nothing is left. Everything is grazed to ground. The effect on nature in the area of intensity 12 means the surface of the ground is radically changed. Considerable ground cracks with extensive vertical and horizontal movements are observed. Falls of rock and slumping of river banks over wide areas. Lakes are dammed, waterfalls appear, and rivers are deflected. The intensity of earthquake requires to be investigated, especially for intensity 12. This was the MSK scale, and this scale has to be taken while we are going for a damage survey and the intensities are assigned. The next scale is the MMI scale, which we called as the modified Mercalli scale. Mercalli in 1902 developed a intensity scale. This scale was again modified in 1931 to suit to the needs to assign intensity in field, and later it was known as modified Mercalli intensity scale. This scale is similar to MSK scale, but is different only in finer details. So, let us see how the Mercalli modified intensity scale looks like. The intensity 1 in MMI scale is vibrations are recorded by instruments, people do not feel any earth movement, and you will see that these intensities are similar to MSK. The intensity 2 in MMI is that people at rest upstairs notice shaking. A few people might notice movement if they are at rest and or on the upper floors of tall buildings. Similarly, intensity 3, intensity 4 are similar to MSK scale. Let us see intensity 5. Intensity 5 means that the doors they swing, liquid spills from glasses, sleepers they awake, almost everyone feels movement, sleeping people are awakened, doors swing open or close, dishes are broken, pictures on wall move, small objects move or are overturned, trees might shake, liquids might spill out of open containers. So, intensity 5 is similar to that of MSK scale. The intensity 6, 7 and 8 are similar to MSK scale. Let us see intensity 9. Intensity 9 means general panic, damage to foundations, sand and mud bubble from ground, well built buildings suffer considerable damage. These effects are similar, but the MSK scale gives more details and there are more defined words. Intensity 12 is again the total destruction. Now, let us see what we do with these intensities. After the damage survey, when we have assigned these intensities to the places, we make a map, mark the intensities at the places, and then we try to join the areas having equal intensity. The lines which join these areas are called as isosysmal, and the map thus prepared is called as isosysmal map. We can find many things from these isosysmal maps. The first is that the attenuation laws can be studied because the intensity is attenuating while we are going away from the epicenter. The second is the correlation of intensities with accelerations and other parameters like magnitude and distance, etc. These empirical relationships are then used inversely to find the intensity at a place, because these intensities are used later for estimating the vulnerability of the area. So, if I know the magnitude, if I know the distance, I can predict the intensity at a place, and with that intensity and the known building types, I can predict how much vulnerable that building will be. And nowadays, the work is going on to estimate the insurance premium for earthquake insurance of the buildings. The next advantage is to infer the pattern of faulting from the shape of the isosysmals. Now, these damages will be according to the type of source and in a particular direction. So, the shape gives you the idea about the focal mechanism also of the earthquake. The next is to give the magnitude rating to the historical earthquakes. We know that in earlier days no instrumentation was there, but based on the interviews of the human beings and then the effect, the permanent secondary effect on the nature, we assign the intensities, make isosysmal maps and then estimate the magnitudes for those historical earthquakes. The next advantage of isosysmal maps is to correlate the intensities with the ground response characteristics. The next is to study the anomalous residual intensities and their significance in seismic hazard estimation. This is the isosysmal map of Bhuj earthquake. Here you see that the elliptical isosysmals are in northeast southwest direction. It started from the village Pali, and as we go towards the center, the intensity increases. Intensity 5 was assigned to the village Pali, and then the area of intensity 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. At Bhajau, the intensity was 10. In this episode, we have learned about the intensity scales. These scales are used in the damage surveys and then isosysmal maps are prepared. We have seen what are the advantages of isosysmal maps, but we should be very careful about using these. Can you visualize a situation in which you are interviewing a person who has earlier experienced an earthquake? There will be difference, because a person who has already experienced an earthquake will have much more to say than the one who has not experienced a single earthquake. So we should use these scales with care.